New York Times criminalizes Brazil's rural poor today with an intellectually dishonest hate job on the Landless Rural Workers Movement (MST), parroting a neo-fascist narrative that ignores Brazil's constitution to maliciously frame it as stealing land. Our correspondent Brian Mier reports about it.
Today, the New York Times ran a feature article taking up an entire page entitled, "If you don't use your land, these Marxists may take it," criminalizing the largest social movement in Latin America, Brazil's Landless Rural Workers Movement, or MST, falsely accusing them of stealing land in blatant disregard of Brazil's 1988 constitution, which declares that all property has a social function. Unlike the United States, where capitalists make billions of dollars sitting on vacant land for decades until real estate values change, in Brazil, these practices are illegal. A large landholder in rural areas cannot just sit on vacant land. If he tries to do this, the federal government has an obligation to use the powers of eminent domain to appropriate the land and distribute it to landless peasants. The government's even set up a ministry specifically for this purpose called INCRA. All that the Landless Rural Workers Movement does is identify tracts of vacant land that are not being used, often in cases where it was originally stolen by the person who claims to own it, and pressures INCRA to appropriate it. If INCRA moves too slowly or doesn't want to appropriate the land, then it coordinates large occupations in which hundreds of peasant families build tents on the land and start farming it until INCRA makes a move to appropriate it. The idea of publishing an article this biased at a moment like this, after 4 years of criminalization of the MST by the Bolsonaro administration, can only be interpreted as a sign of encouraging more violence against Brazil's rural poor.